I rose, clutching the deed as if it were a talisman, and walked to my writing desk where a single sheet of paper lay blank. A power of attorney form I had requested months ago, never imagining I would use it. Not until now. My hand hovered over the pen. With each stroke, I would reclaim the narrative of my life. Tears blurred my vision, but I pressed on, signing my name with deliberate strength. Elowen A. Hartley. The moment the ink dried, an electric current of empowerment surged through me. This was not just a signature. It was my declaration of independence. A soft knock at the door startled me. I tucked the deed into my purse and turned. It was Clara, my closest friend since college, her expression a mix of concern and defiance. We had made a pact once, during a sleepless sophomore night, that if anyone ever tried to rob the other of her dignity, we would stand as shields. Clara crossed the threshold without waiting for an invitation, her hand on my shoulder. "I know," she whispered, her voice thick with anger I recognized as my own. "Let's fix this." I met her gaze, feeling the weight of fear lift as clarity settled in. We would fight him, and not with tears, but with tenacity. There was a lawyer who owed me a favor, a title examiner I once helped, and a will I had drafted that named me sole beneficiary. The pieces were falling into place. Outside, the sky turned the color of bruised plums. A storm was coming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth, tasting the bitterness of betrayal as I slid the deed into the safety of my purse. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, louder than the ticking clock on the mantel. I could still see Thomas's smug expression when I'd cornered him this morning, an expression I'd once believed held love and pride. Now I recognized it for what it was: contempt. Before I could steady myself, I felt the front door click. The soft padding of his footsteps crept down the hallway, and I braced for confrontation. Thomas emerged, crisp in his tailored suit, his dark hair perfectly in place. He saw the deed peeking from my purse and smiled with a cold certainty. "Looking at our little contract, Elowen?" he asked, voice dripping with condescension. I lifted my chin, refusing to let him see my fear. "I'm reading the fine print," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The part where you tried to remove my name." His laugh was silk and poison. "That clause? You're overreacting." He stepped closer, heat of his body, a reminder of the man I once loved. "I made some adjustments. I thought you'd be grateful. I'm protecting my investment, our family." Every syllable hit me like a blow. "Protecting your investment," I repeated, anger boiling beneath my skin. "You mean protecting yourself?" He flicked his gaze to the ornate family portrait above the fireplace, ancestors frozen in time, steely-eyed and unyielding. "Your entitlement is showing," he murmured. A storm of memories surged through me. Our first home, the joy of painting this living room together, the nights we stayed up talking about our dreams. None of those memories fit with this moment, where the man I pledged my life to sat, poised to erase me from the very ground I'd stood on when we said our vows. I closed the distance between us on trembling legs and placed the deed on the coffee table. The fine, elegant script stared back at us both. "I want answers," I said. "Why did you do it?" Thomas's expression shifted, as if he weighed revealing more. For a moment, vulnerability flickered in his eyes, but then he hardened again. "Business reasons," he said. "Your spending habits are excessive. I can't risk our portfolio on your whims." My hands balled into fists. Whims? Like supporting my charity projects? Investing in our community center? Or maybe the time I negotiated that grant for the local women's shelter? I fought the tremor in my voice. Whims like that? He looked away, as if ashamed or perhaps simply unwilling to admit I'd been right. The tension crackled between us. I drew in a breath and raised my chin. "If I'm such a liability, then maybe you shouldn't call this place our home." He stared at me, surprise flickering. No one had ever challenged him like that. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I seized the moment of silence and walked past him to the bay window, resting my palms on the cool glass. Out there, the garden bloomed in riotous color, the world oblivious to our unraveling. For the first time in months, I felt clarity. I realized that even if he succeeded in removing my name, I still carried something far more powerful than a signature on paper, my own voice, my own conviction. When Thomas finally spoke, his tone was low. "You don't have any leverage," he said. I turned to him, my eyes blazing. "I have more leverage than you know. Start with the deed itself." His brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my purse and retrieved the deed, then laid it face up. He bent to read, and I watched as disbelief washed across his face. "Who added?" he began, but his voice dropped. I let him study the script. "Check the signature line." He looked closer, then slammed the deed onto the table and glared at me. "This is impossible." I met his gaze evenly. "Until today, you thought it was. But now you see I'm not the one you can cut out." He slid a finger along the elegant ink, tracing the name the lawyer had etched in flowing cursive, Eloan Hartley. But there was another beneath it, faintly embossed in silver, Mabel Hartley. Thomas's face paled. He backed away and covered his mouth. "Mabel, my grandmother?" I nodded. "She trusted me with this legacy long before you ever did." The weight of the moment settled between us. He realized that no matter his next move, there was someone far fiercer than him defending this home. His shoulders slumped. For a heartbeat, I saw regret. Then he squared his jacket and cleared his throat. "We need to talk to the attorney." I exhaled, relief mingling with exhaustion. The battle wasn't over. It was only beginning. But for the first time, I knew I held the upper hand. Before I could reply, the overhead clock chimed 5 times, each bell echoing through the house like a declaration. The afternoon light shifted, shadows sweeping across the walls. And then I heard it, that unmistakable ping from my phone, signaling a live chat comment on our channel. My heart fluttered. In the midst of personal war, my story was already connecting with others. I picked up the phone. The screen glowed with notifications, viewers asking where I was from, pledging support, speculating on the next twist. A triumphant smile spread across my face. "So this is how it begins," I whispered to the empty room. "On my terms." I set the phone down, heart pounding as I prepared for whatever came next. A heavy silence filled the house as Thomas retreated to the study, leaving me alone with the hush of our once shared sanctuary. I closed the living room door behind him, the click of the latch an echo of my own heartbeat. Every fiber of my being hummed with anticipation and anxiety. I had seized a victory, however small, but the war was far from over. I hovered by the bay window again, eyes tracing the contours of the garden. Late spring flowers nodded in the breeze, oblivious to the storm unfolding inside these walls. The irony wasn't lost on me. Life continued its blossom outside, while here, trust wilted. From the window's ledge, I retrieved my phone and tapped the notification. My subscribers' comments streamed in faster than I could read. "Where are you from? I'm rooting for you. This is the best plot twist ever." My pulse quickened, the rush of connection a balm for my frayed nerves. I swiped up, addressing them in the YouTube live interface. "Hello, everyone. I'm broadcasting from my hometown, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the fields stretch wide and stories like mine sprout in unlikely places. Thank you for being here." I paused, fingers hovering over the camera app. In a burst of spontaneous courage, I flipped on my front-facing camera. My cheeks flushed as I stared at my own reflection. "I'm Eloan Hartley," I began, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "And this is the story no one saw coming." Behind me, the living room glowed in golden light, the ornate mantel and family portraits framing my silhouette. I rarely shared my face online. My channel had been voice and narrative, but something about this moment demanded authenticity. A hush fell over the live chat, then a deluge of hearts and thumbs-up emojis filled the screen. My viewers felt invited behind the curtain. I ended the broadcast quickly. There would be time for analysis and outreach later. Right now, I needed focus. I tapped off the camera and rose from the sofa. In the study, the doors stood ajar. I nudged it open with my shoulder. Thomas sat behind his mahogany desk, the lawyer's letterhead spread before him, stained by the folds from our earlier confrontation. He looked up, gaze wary. "Well?" I asked, stepping inside and lowering myself onto the chair opposite him. He folded his hands, breathing deeply. "I spoke with Miss Franklin," he said, naming our estate attorney. He laced and unlaced his fingers. "She confirms everything you found is valid. Grandma Mabel's deed supersedes mine." I inclined my head. I suspected as much. His eyes flicked to my purse at my feet. He cleared his throat. "But there's more. The property was entailed in a way I didn't realize. It can't be split or sold without approval from all beneficiaries." I felt a flutter in my chest. "Beneficiaries?" I echoed. He nodded. "According to Grandma's will, the estate includes her 2 grandchildren, me, Thomas Hartley Jr., and you, Eloan Hartley. Any decision regarding the house requires our joint consent." I leaned back, exhaling. My name embossed in silver on that deed had not just been symbolic, it was legally binding. He rubbed his temples. "I didn't anticipate this. I thought I could streamline the assets for tax purposes, perhaps liquidate part to fund the business expansion." My eyes narrowed. "You never mentioned the expansion." A flicker of guilt crossed his face. "Because I knew you'd oppose it. You've always pushed for the community center funding. My board wants a new wing upstate." I stood, pacing. "Our board, our center. You insulted my integrity, called my spending whims, yet you grandstand your ambitions as necessity." He rose, blocking my path. "We're talking about millions, Eloan. This property is a drop in the bucket if we can redeploy the capital." I met his gaze. "It's our home." He exhaled, a soft surrender. "I want to make this right," he said quietly. "I'll withdraw the amendment. We'll file the paperwork tomorrow." I studied him, searching for sincerity. "And the expansion?" He hesitated. "We can revisit it later." I closed my eyes, gathering calm. "You'll come to the community meeting next week and present the funding plan, as equals." He swallowed. "Agreed." A fragile peace settled over us. But as I returned to the living room, a new doubt gnawed at me. Was this negotiation born of genuine contrition, or merely damage control? I sank onto the sofa and pressed my lips together. The house felt both conquered and alien. The phone pinged again, more live chat requests, new subscribers. I clicked the notification, a message from my best friend Harper. "Call me ASAP." My heart fluttered. Harper was the one person I trusted beyond measure. They'd been my confidant since childhood. I tapped Harper's name. "Harper, what's—" "A family matter," Harper's voice crackled. "Your aunt, Mabel's only daughter, is in town. She's at Grandma's old family estate. She wants to see you." I frowned. "Grandma's estate? You mean the manor in Devon?" "Yes. She left this morning for England. She called me en route, said it's urgent." My pulse quickened. Aunt Juniper had never left her wildflower farm in the Cotswolds, except for the occasional summer festival. "Why English countryside now?" I gasped. Harper hesitated. She hinted at something in Grandma's final letter, something she couldn't share before. "Eloan, you need to go." A surge of unease and curiosity clashed within me. The battle here wasn't enough. Grandma's legacy stretched across continents. I swallowed hard. "When's the next flight?" Harper gave the details. "Red-eye tonight. You'd land in London at dawn." I looked around our sunlit living room, the air heavy with possibility. "Okay," I said, adrenaline coursing through me. "I'm going." Harper's sigh came through the line, relieved. "I'll handle things here." I ended the call and set the phone aside. My entire world, my home, my channel, my heritage, had shifted in 24 hours. Now I was to chase answers across the Atlantic. My breath caught. Without hesitation, I walked back into the study and closed the door behind me. Thomas looked up in surprise. "What are you doing?" I laid my phone and laptop on his desk. "I'm going to England." His brow furrowed. "England? For what?" I opened the laptop, pulling up flight searches. "Family business. Grandma's final letter mentioned something important only Aunt Juniper can explain. I can't ignore it." He stood, crossing the room in a few strides. "This is about me, isn't it?" He placed a hand on my shoulder. "At least, let me come with you." I turned, heart softening for a moment. "No," I said firmly, "this is personal." His hand dropped. Eloan. I'm doing this alone, I repeated, voice steady, and when I get back, we'll finalize everything. He nodded slowly, eyes unreadable. If that's what you need. I offered a tight smile, then slipped out. The front door closed behind me with finality. Outside, the breeze was cool on my face. The sky, draped in twilight hues, seemed to mirror the turning of my fate. I exhaled, steadying myself. The first flight to London would depart in 6 hours. Ahead lay secrets buried in Devon, letters from a beloved grandmother, and the promise of revelations that could shake the very foundations of my identity. I opened my purse and removed the deed, 2 shining names dancing on the paper. I clutched it close like a shield. Tomorrow the sun would rise over England, and with it a new chapter of my story would begin. The study door closed with a muted thud that echoed through my chest, each beat reminding me of the stakes we faced. I took a steadying breath and turned to the mantel clock. The hands glowed softly in the dim light, counting down to an unknown verdict. It was as if time itself conspired against me, dragging its fingers across the dial with deliberate slowness. Crossing the thick Persian rug, I approached the mahogany desk that had once been Thomas's proudest symbol of success. Papers fanned out across its surface, balance sheets, mortgage documents, investment proposals. I reached out, fingertips grazing the edge of a financial summary for my charity's latest fundraiser. A pang of sorrow shot through me. These were the proofs of my contributions, the evidence of purpose beyond profit. My phone buzzed again, notifications flooding in about the chapter release. Comments poured in from viewers around the world. Hearts, thumbs up icons, messages of solidarity. I placed the phone face down, determined to focus. I needed to draw on my own resources, intellect, resolve, and every lesson Mabel Hartley had ever taught me. I scanned the bookshelves lining the walls, leather-bound volumes of law texts, antique memoirs, and biographies of formidable women who'd defied convention. Mabel's portrait hung above them, her stern gaze demanding action. I stepped closer and studied her face, iron-willed, determined. It was in her honor I would finish this fight. Footsteps approached outside. My heart caught. I hurried to the far corner and tucked the deed into the waistband of my skirt, careful not to crease the paper. The door opened, revealing Thomas in a gray haze of desperation. I spoke to the attorney, he said quietly. His voice was subdued, stripped of its earlier arrogance. Mabel's clause stands. Legally, I can't remove you. He paused, head bowed. I underestimated you. I steadied my voice. That clause wasn't an accident. His gaze snapped up. You forged her signature. A flicker of indignation rose. I didn't forge it. I simply ensured her intentions were honored. She wanted the home to remain with family, not become a financial plaything. Thomas ran a hand through his hair. This entire house, this life, it was all about power and money to you, wasn't it? I felt anger surge but held it at bay. No, it was about legacy, love, stability. He shook his head. I gave you everything. I allowed a small, sad smile. What you gave me, I gave back tenfold, with compassion, purpose, community. I stepped closer. And what I'll do now is not for you or me, but for everyone whose lives we can change with this home. Quote. He looked away, conflicted. Shadows danced across his face, betraying the man behind the suit. Flawed, vulnerable, possibly redeemable. Yet I knew redemption would cost us both. I took a deep breath. I'm filing an amendment today. His eyes widened. You can't. I reached into my purse and withdrew a stack of papers. Amendments, affidavits, statements from neighbors, even a notarized letter from the local women's shelter acknowledging my work. I spread them across the desk, careful to organize them by relevancy and date. Thomas watched, stunned. How did you assemble this so quickly? I met his gaze firmly. I've been preparing since the day I discovered your plan. Do you think the only thing I did while you churned numbers was sip tea? His jaw clenched. This changes nothing. I'll just find another way. I sensed the tremor in his voice, fear masked by bravado. We'll see. He turned away abruptly and strode to the window. I could feel the tension radiating from him, a palpable force that threatened to shatter the fragile calm of the room. As Thomas stood silhouetted against the fading afternoon light, I reached for my phone and tapped post. A caption appeared beneath the latest chapter. Today, we fight not just for a house, but for every woman who deserves a voice. I hit share. Immediately, messages of support flooded in. You inspire me, keep fighting, I believe in you. Thomas spun around. You're turning this into a spectacle. I allowed a single nod. This spectacle is my shield. There's power in numbers. He swallowed hard, pain flashing in his eyes. I didn't expect this. I approached, each step measured. You should have been honest from the start. He looked up, tears glinting. I'm sorry. The word hung in the air like broken glass. I searched his face for sincerity, but found only regret, and the bitter cost of betrayal. My phone buzzed again. A high-profile legal blogger had shared our story. When a wife outmaneuvers her husband in a real-life property thriller. The notification blurred my vision, but I stood firm. I straightened, voice unwavering. You have one chance. We negotiate in good faith or we go to court. He exhaled, defeat in his shoulders. Fine. I allowed myself a small, victorious smile. Let's begin. A sudden knock at the door startled us both. The assistant's head peeked in. You have a visitor, Mrs. Hartley. I frowned. Who? The assistant hesitated. She says she's a representative from your grandmother's estate. Thomas's face drained of color. I stepped back, heart racing. This was the moment we both feared. Mabel's legacy, personified, arriving to judge us. The assistant opened the door wider, and a tall woman in a charcoal suit entered. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back into a severe bun, and her steel-blue eyes bore into me. I'm Margaret Blythe, she said in a clipped tone. I'm here to ensure my mother's wishes are executed precisely. She paused, gaze flicking to Thomas. And to ensure no one profits illicitly from her generosity. Thomas swallowed. I met Margaret's eyes with unwavering resolve. In that silence, I felt it. The true turning point. With Margaret's arrival, the battlefield shifted. Margaret's next words would determine whether our house would remain a home or become a prize in a larger war. Her voice, crisp as frost, filled the room. Shall we begin our review? Margaret Blythe's entrance shifted the atmosphere in the study from charged tension to brittle formality. Her gaze slid over the documents spread across the desk as though she weighed each one against some invisible ledger in her mind. Thomas and I stood side by side, uncomfortably united by circumstance yet worlds apart in trust. Margaret's attention fixed on the deed, and she extended a slender hand to lift it from the pile. I felt my pulse quicken as she unfolded it, tracing the embossed silver signature, Mabel Hartley, with a critical eye. This signature, Margaret said softly, should have been witnessed by two parties at the time of execution. She paused, looking at me. Do you have proof of that? My throat tightened, but I cleared it. Yes, a notarized affidavit from the attorney who drafted it. I reached into my purse and presented the affidavit, which Margaret scanned with fastidious care, her lips pressed into a thin line. She placed the documents on the desk. Everything appears to be in order. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. However, she continued, jaw tightening, the amendment you filed earlier lacks one crucial element. Mrs. Hartley's explicit consent attached as a separate notarized endorsement. Thomas's eyes flashed. That's not true. Margaret cut him off with a steely glance. I will need those papers. I swallowed. I had thought to include it, but, in my haste, overlooked the separate signed endorsement. The room echoed with my mistake. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. The words burst from me, delivered like a charm to cut tension, yet they felt hollow against Margaret's discerning stare. Thomas stepped forward, voice low. We can rectify this. Iloan simply needs to obtain the endorsement from the estate files. Margaret's eyes flicked between us. You will have 1 week. I nodded, feeling the narrowing trap of time. Understood. Margaret's gaze settled on me. I expect full transparency. She turned to Thomas. And you, Mr. Hartley. I expect you to cease any attempts to override the clause in question. If either of you deviates from this path, I will pursue legal recourse. Her threat, unspoken but clear, hung like icicles in the room. She collected her papers, nodded curtly, and exited without another word. I closed the door behind her and sank into the chair at the desk, mind racing. In one visit, we had lost momentum and gained a demanding arbiter. A week to secure the endorsement or risk everything. Thomas stood opposite me, face conflicted. "I'll help you find it." I studied him. His offer felt sincere, but I knew any help from him came with risk. Still, time was not on our side. "Agreed," I said. "Tomorrow we'll go through the estate archives." He nodded, tension etched in his features. "We should also," he paused, voice dropping, "we should tell your lawyer." I bit my lip. My lawyer had been supportive but pragmatic, less than enthusiastic about public spectacle. Involving him might complicate our media momentum. But Margaret's deadline left no choice. I lifted my phone and tapped the newly drafted email to the law office. Subject line, urgent, estate endorsement needed. Before hitting send, I hesitated, thumb hovering. Outside, dusk settled, the golden light drained from the room. In that half-dark, I realized how precarious our position was. Each step forward exposed new pitfalls. I finally hit send. Thomas glanced at the screen. "Good. We're covered." I nodded, but doubt undermined my confidence. The endorsement might exist or might never have been properly recorded. If it wasn't there, we'd be out of luck and out of home. I rose and walked to the window, watching as the neighborhood lights flickered on. Each illuminated window seemed to hold a story, a sanctuary, a hearth. I wanted this to remain ours. I swallowed hard, determination stealing my spine. 1 week to confirm my grandmother's final signature. 1 week to prove I belonged here. A soft ping signaled another live chat message. I checked. A viewer had donated to my favorite women's shelter in solidarity. Relief and gratitude warmed me. I turned back to Thomas. "Tomorrow, early." "We dig through Mabel's files." He nodded. "Early." As I locked the study door behind us, a final thought echoed in my mind. The real test wasn't against him, but against time, and the hidden truths buried in Mabel's past. Dawn found me seated at the kitchen table, a mug of cold coffee cradled between my hands. The sunrise painted the sky in bruised purples and golds, mirroring the tumult in my heart. Outside, birds chirped as though oblivious to the storm brewing within our walls. Thomas joined me silently, pouring himself a coffee. The clink of his spoon against the mug sounded like distant gunfire. We sat in companionable tension, both aware of the mountain we needed to climb. "Do you remember where Mabel kept her personal papers?" I asked, voice hushed. He nodded. "In the cedar chest. It was in Grandma's room at the estate." He pushed back his chair. "I'll drive us." I stood, the cold linoleum pressing through the soles of my slippers, reminding me that no amount of privilege could insulate me forever from the real work ahead. We loaded into his car, the engine's roar filling the quiet morning. The trip to the old Hartley estate felt like stepping into another era. Towering oaks lined the winding road, their gnarled branches like skeletal arms. The estate's wrought iron gates stood ajar, as though welcoming and warning us in equal measure. The manor house rose before us, weathered stone, ivy crawling across its facade, windows like watchful eyes. I remembered childhood summers spent here, exploring hidden nooks and listening to Mabel's stories by the hearth. Today, the manor carried a different weight, every hallway a reminder of secrets waiting to be unearthed. Inside, the air smelled of aged wood and lavender sachets. Dust motes drifted in the slanted light from tall windows. I led us through the grand foyer to the study where Mabel had once presided over family matters. The cedar chest sat in the corner, its intricate carvings catching the light. Thomas knelt beside it, prying the heavy lid open. Inside, folders neatly stacked, and beneath them, a leather-bound journal. He handed me the top folder first, estate inventories and meeting minutes, but I was focused on the journal. The leather was cracked, spine fragile. I opened it carefully, pages fluttering to a page dated 19 years ago, in Mabel's precise handwriting. April 3rd, 2006. My dearest Eloin, if you are reading this, you have discovered more than just family history. You have found the foundation of all I hold dear. This home is not merely bricks and mortar, but the embodiment of our lineage's hopes. Should the day come when its walls do not stand for love, may my words guide those who follow my heart. My breath caught. This wasn't the endorsement Margaret demanded. It was more. It was an expression of intent, a letter to me. I read on. The entry detailed Mabel's instructions for preserving the estate, a requirement that any amendments to the deed include her written letter, witnessed by her confidant, Margaret Blythe. My heart sank. I still needed the separate notarized endorsement. This letter alone wouldn't suffice. Thomas watched me, concern etched on his face. Is that? I nodded, smoothing the page. It's heartfelt, but not the technical document we need. We need the original endorsement Margaret mentioned. He exhaled. But look, the letter proves intent. Surely that counts. I closed the journal. It bolsters our case, but without the notarized signature, Margaret can delay us further. We cleared the chest's contents onto the floor, sorting through yellowed envelopes, legal correspondence, even afternoon tea invitations. Everything except that elusive endorsement. I rifled through a folder labeled Legal Confidential. Deep within, I found a thick envelope, seal intact. The return address read, Blythe & Company, Attorneys, London. My pulse raced as I broke the seal. Inside, crisp ivory paper bore Mabel's signature, beneath which were the words, Witnessed by Margaret Blythe, April 4, 2006. I drew in a breath and turned to Thomas. We've found it. He reached for the document, but I held it back. No, I want to make sure it's authentic. I examined the ink, the paper quality. It felt genuine. The layout matched other endorsed documents. My heart pounded with hope and fear. Thomas exhaled in relief. This is it. Suddenly, a noise at the door made us both stiffen. The manor's doors creaked as someone entered. Margaret, her silhouette framed in the hallway light. Mrs. Hartley, she said, voice calm but firm. I received word you'd be here. I rose, clutching the envelope. Margaret, this is the endorsement you requested. Her eyes narrowed as she took the paper and unfolded it. Her lips parted, then pressed together as she read. The silence dragged on, heavier than any sentence. Finally, she looked up. Well done. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Margaret returned the envelope, but her gaze hovered on me. You've satisfied the legal requirement. The clause stands. Thomas exhaled, relief flooding his features. I felt a surge of triumph, tempered by the knowledge that this battle had revealed fractures neither of us could ignore. Margaret's voice cut through my thoughts. However, she paused, gaze shifting. There's more. Mabel left one final instruction, a postscript in her will regarding the use of the property. My heart sank again. What instruction? I demanded. Margaret's lips curved into a slight, enigmatic smile. She folded the endorsement and tucked it into her portfolio. You'll have to read it to find out. Her words echoed as she turned and left, leaving me clutching uncertainty. The endorsement was real, but Mabel's postscript threatened to redefine everything I'd fought for. Thomas reached for my hand. We'll face it together. I nodded, steeling myself. One part of the war was over, but a deeper secret lay ahead, one that could either secure my future or shatter it completely. Outside, thunder rumbled, as though the sky itself responded to the next challenge. I took a breath. Then let's see what Grandma truly intended. Mabel's postscript burned in my mind like a secret flame as I stepped back into our car alongside Thomas. The sky overhead roiled with heavy clouds, mirroring the uncertainty swelling in my heart. The endorsement had been secured, but now there was a hidden layer, a final instruction penned by a woman who'd navigated her own storms with grace and cunning. The drive back to the city was charged with silence. Thomas's grip on the steering wheel was tight, knuckles white. I stared out the window at the world speeding past, green fields yielding to suburban sprawl, the line between past and present blurring in my mind. Do you think the postscript involves money? Thomas broke the quiet, voice low. I shook my head. Knowing Grandma, it's more symbolic. Something about who deserves to hold the reins of this legacy. I breathed deeply, preparing myself for whatever lay ahead. By the time we reached home, twilight had settled. I led Thomas inside, where the home felt both sanctuary and battleground. The living room lights haloed the familiar furniture, each piece steeped in memories of laughter and tears. I retrieved the will from my bag, a thick packet of legal pages that detailed every aspect of her estate. The postscript was at the very end, separate from the dense legalese, as if she had whispered it just to me. My thumb slipped through the pages until I found it. Asterisk, to my granddaughter Elowen, may this home be a refuge for those in need, a beacon of hope in dark times. Should you choose to claim this legacy, let it be known that its true value lies not in its stones, but in the lives it shelters. You must open its doors to at least one cause greater than yourself each year, or this property shall pass to the next guardian chosen by the community. My breath caught. A condition, not just legal ownership, but a moral imperative. Every year I must open the home's doors to a greater cause, or risk losing it. Thomas drew in a slow breath beside me. That's unexpected. I closed the packet. It's more than unexpected, it's transformative. My mind raced with possibilities. Charity events in the Grand Hall, shelter for families in crisis, community gatherings that healed old wounds. He nodded slowly. It's pipe dream stuff, but maybe that's who she was. Dreaming, caring. I paced the room, eyes on the bay window where the first stars had appeared. I've built programs with foundations before, but I've never had something so personal. Thomas watched me, expression thoughtful. It could be incredible, Ellie, but it will change everything. I looked at him. Is that okay? He hesitated, then offered a small, genuine smile. If it's what you want. I nodded, conviction blossoming. It's what I need. The weight of her words settled on me. Refuge, beacon, lives at shelters. Not a burden, but a calling. A test of my commitment to more than personal vindication. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the postscript. I imagined the home filled with unfamiliar faces, families rebuilding after tragedies, activists strategizing for change, vulnerable souls finding solace under the Hartley roof. At dawn, I rose with purpose. I drafted plans in my notebook. Partnerships with local shelters, pro bono legal clinics hosted in our study, art therapy workshops in the living room. Each idea felt like a step toward honoring Mabel's legacy. Thomas found me at the kitchen table, blueprints and flyers spread around. This is amazing, he said softly. I smiled, energized. We start with one. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I'll help you. I squeezed his hand, grateful yet cautious. This fragile alliance had weathered storms, and now it faced a new horizon, one that demanded unity, compassion, and courage. As I looked at Thomas, I realized that reclaiming my home meant more than preserving my name on a deed. It meant living up to the spirit of a woman whose wisdom transcended time. I rose and looked out the kitchen window at the empty driveway. We'll open our doors next weekend, I said, voice steady. To families fleeing domestic abuse, they need a safe place. Thomas nodded. We'll prepare. I turned back, determination shining in my eyes, and we'll show the world what this home can be. The next chapter of our story was just beginning, one written not with ink but with actions that would reverberate far beyond these walls. That Saturday morning, our home rippled with purpose. The living room, bathed in gentle sunlight, was transformed. Rows of folding chairs set against the velvet sofa, donation bins lined along the hearth, and a long mahogany table laden with coffee urns and volunteer sign-up sheets. I moved through the space with deliberate calm, smoothing a promotional poster on the wall, a safe haven, opening our home to survivors. Thomas appeared beside me, wearing a volunteer badge I'd designed in Mabel's signature lavender hue. He offered a reassuring smile. Everything's ready. I nodded, heart pounding. This was more than an event. It was the first step toward fulfilling my grandmother's legacy. I inhaled, gathering courage, and prepared to greet our guests. On the front porch, I adjusted the welcome banner one last time. The crisp morning air rustled the letters, and each breath carried hope and nerves. The first arrivals trickled in. A small family, mother and 2 children. Eyes wary but hopeful. The mother approached, voice soft. "Thank you. We didn't know where else to go." I took a gentle breath and knelt to their level. "You're safe here. Let me show you to the living room. We've got blankets and snacks." As I led them inside, volunteers handed hot chocolate to the children, and Thomas offered comfort to their mother. The warmth of human connection framed the room, and for a moment, I felt the weight of doubt lift. By mid-morning, the manor hummed with activity. Counselors and legal advisors set up in the study. Local chefs served homemade meals in the dining room, and an art therapist arranged paints on the terrace. I moved between groups, checking in, listening to stories of pain and resilience. Each conversation fueled my resolve. This house was more than bricks, it was healing. Then, as the afternoon sun slanted through the stained glass window, I paused by the bay window and noticed a sleek black SUV parked outside. An unfamiliar logo, Hartley and Blythe Legal Services, glowed on the door. My pulse quickened. A new player had arrived. In moments, a woman in a crisp suit emerged, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 aides. She looked to be in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense air. I approached, maintaining composure. "Good afternoon, can I help you?" She offered a curt nod. "Mrs. Hartley?" "I'm Alexandra Blake, corporate counsel representing a group of investors concerned about the property's usage under Mrs. Blythe's stipulations." My heart sank. Corporate counsel meant legal challenge. Yet Alexandra looked surprisingly hesitant, as if uncertain about her mission. I met her gaze. "You're welcome to stay for the event. See firsthand what this home means." Alexandra glanced at the families inside, their laughter drifting out. She hesitated, then lowered her clipboard. "I might take you up on that." I gestured toward the dining room. "Join us for refreshments." She nodded once, stepping inside. As she moved between guests, I watched her expression shift from scout-like appraisal to quiet curiosity. The room's compassion seemed to penetrate her defenses. I retreated to the study to check on the legal clinic, where volunteers offered guidance on temporary housing, restraining orders, and benefits enrollment. Each person who left that room carried hope. Moments later, Alexandra entered. She looked unsettled, clipboard forgotten. I crossed to her. "What do you think?" She exhaled. "This is more than I expected." Before I could reply, a volunteer rushed in. "A family needs immediate medical attention. They've been exposed to smoke from a nearby house fire." My chest tightened. We sprang into action. One volunteer guided the fire-affected family into the study for first aid. Others fetched medical supplies. I grabbed the emergency kit and knelt beside the mother, speaking softly as I applied a cool compress. In the rush, I felt Alexandra's presence beside me. "Anything I can do?" I nodded. "Please help me organize these supplies." She did, moving with surprising empathy. Together we comforted the frightened family, offering water and smiles. Once the family was stable and en route to the hospital in one of our vehicles, I exhaled deeply. Alexandra's eyes met mine. Concern, respect, something new. She said quietly, "Mrs. Hartley, I was instructed to investigate how you might breach Mrs. Blythe's terms. But after witnessing this, I'm not sure our concerns matter anymore." I took a breath. Mrs. Blythe believed in this. Not the property, the people. Alexandra nodded, a small smile softening her features. "I'll report that, though it may surprise my clients." I smiled back, relief and gratitude flooding me. "Thank you." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. My clients want assurance this event isn't a one-off. They're looking for a sustainable plan." I met her gaze. "This home will open its doors every year, for as long as necessary." Alexandra exhaled. "I'll convey that. You've made a strong case for the heart of this place." As she departed, I watched her SUV merge into the winding drive. Despite the looming corporate interests, our cause had found an ally in her. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow across the room. I gathered our first guests in the living room for departure, offering hugs and words of encouragement. Thomas joined me, pride shining in his eyes. "You did it, Ellie." I shook my head, breathless. "We did it." He smiled, and as I looked around our home, filled not with luxury, but with purpose, I knew this was only the beginning. Mabel's legacy lived on in every act of kindness, every life touched. Outside, dusk settled, and the front door closed softly behind the last visitor. I stood in the quiet, chest pounding, and whispered, "This house is alive." But as I turned to Thomas, a soft chime from my phone reminded me a live chat comment had appeared moments ago. Asterisk, "I'm in tears. You're changing the world." I smiled through tears of my own. Let's keep going. The morning sun filtered through the curtains as I woke to an inbox flooded with messages. Words of thanks from survivors, pledges from volunteers, and inquiries from media outlets wanting interviews about the Safe Haven event. My head spun with the magnitude of our impact, but there was no time to bask in praise. I slid out of bed and found Thomas in the study, elbows propped on the desk, reading through the post-event reports. His expression was focused. This conflict had woven us into a formidable team. "More coverage from the local paper," he said, pointing to the headline. "Ellie Hartley's home, from domestic drama to community beacon." He smiled. "They've coined a new title for you." I chuckled, though the fatigue in my bones threatened to dull the moment. "Beacon? I'll take it." He held up another sheet. "Corporate Counsel approved the continuation clause. Investors are on board, conditionally. They want detailed plans for next year." I nodded. "I'll draft a proposal outlining quarterly programs and budget." Thomas glanced at the clock. "We need to finalize today. But first," he handed me an envelope. "This arrived this morning, hand-delivered." My heart fluttered as I opened it. Inside was an invitation. "To Mrs. Hartley. You are cordially invited to deliver a keynote at the State Women's Advocacy Conference, October 15th, Capital City." The letter bore the official seal. I looked up at Thomas, disbelief and excitement swirling. "A conference?" He nodded, eyes shining. "They want your story." I closed the letter carefully. Speaking at a conference would amplify our cause beyond our home's walls. It was the next step, stretching our reach and securing long-term support. But the invitation presented a dilemma. Preparing for the conference would pull me away from the house and its weekly programs. Balancing obligations would demand more from both of us. I took a deep breath. "I'll do it, but we need a strong team here to manage operations." Thomas nodded. "I'll coordinate volunteers and secure sponsorships." I smiled, gratitude and resolve mingling. "Thank you." After breakfast, I settled at the desk to draft the proposal. Mabel's journal spread around me as inspiration. I outlined monthly initiatives, legal clinics, healing art workshops, job skills training, all funded by sliding scale contributions and investor patronage. Each section reflected the ethos of opening doors for those in need. When the draft was complete, I emailed it to Alexandra Blake with a polite note expressing gratitude for her support. I clicked send and leaned back, hope fluttering in my chest. "Done?" Thomas asked, entering with 2 coffees. I accepted the cup with a sigh. "Proposal sent. Now the conference keynote." He sank into a chair. "We've got time, 2 months." I nodded, but doubt flickered. Public speaking had never been my comfort zone. Still, sharing my journey could inspire broader change. I spent the afternoon crafting my speech outline, opening with our personal story, betrayal, revelation of the deed, Mabel's clause, and transitioning to the impact of community-based sanctuary initiatives. I peppered the outline with statistics on domestic abuse, quotes from survivors, and an invitation for other communities to adopt similar models. Evening came, and as dusk blanketed the sky, I practiced aloud in the empty living room. My voice wavered at first, then gained strength with each pass. I could feel Mabel's spirit urging me forward. Later, as I prepared for bed, my phone pinged with an urgent message from the law office. *Client. Urgent court date scheduled next week regarding spousal filing. My heart sank. Thomas's initial agreement to negotiate in good faith apparently hadn't prevented him from filing counterclaims. I stared at the screen, chest tightening. We had a conference keynote and community programs to plan, but a court appearance threatened to upend everything. I set the phone aside, mind racing. The week ahead would demand strategy, resilience, and every ounce of Mabel's wisdom. As I drifted to sleep, one thought echoed. The courtroom battle now loomed larger than ever. The deed had been preserved, the community embraced, but the legal war still raged, and the stakes were higher than ever. The next morning, I awoke with a singular sense of purpose. Today, we would take the courtroom by storm. The sun had barely risen when I slipped into my tailored blazer, hair pinned back to reveal determined eyes. I glanced at my reflection and whispered, "Mabel, this one's for you." In the car, Thomas drove with measured focus. The courthouse loomed ahead, an imposing granite structure flanked by fluted columns. Its steps felt like the summit of a mountain I had to climb. We joined the trickle of early arrivals. Lawyers in crisp suits, clerks fumbling with paperwork, reporters gathering against the stone walls. Inside, the foyer's marble floor gleamed under vaulted ceilings. I felt its coolness through the soles of my shoes, grounding me. An assistant led us to a small antechamber. Around a battered wooden table lay stacks of files. Our evidence and Thomas's counterclaims intermingled in a chaotic heap. My lawyer, Ms. Patel, greeted us with a warm but urgent nod. Her dark eyes scanned me, then Thomas. "We've got the judge's attention at 10 o'clock. You ready?" I swallowed, voice steady. "I am." She pointed to our exhibits. The deed with Mabel's signature, the notarized endorsement, the postscript letter, and documentation of the community events. Beside them lay Thomas's filings, assertions of misrepresentation, allegations I had falsified documents. My chest tightened. The allegations cut deeper than any legal clause. They attacked my integrity. Yet I drew on the memory of last weekend's warmth, the lives we'd touched. The bailiff called our case. We rose, heartbeats sinking with the echo of our shoes against stone floors. The courtroom doors opened, revealing battered wooden benches and a high bench where Judge Reynolds presided, a woman known for her fair but firm rulings. I exchanged a determined look with Ms. Patel as we approached the bench. Thomas stood a step behind me, conflicted lines etched across his face. Judge Reynolds's gaze swept the room. "Hartley versus Hartley. Are counsel ready?" she asked, voice resonant. Ms. Patel stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We're prepared to demonstrate the validity of the deed and the enforceability of the postscript conditions." Thomas's counsel rose next. "Your Honor, we contend that the endorsement was improperly obtained and that the postscript constitutes an undue burden on the estate." My stomach fluttered. A burden. Had I overstepped Mabel's intentions? This line of attack threatened the very heart of her legacy. Judge Reynolds drummed her gavel. "Proceed." Miss Patel called her first witness, myself. My palms itched as I handed the deed to the bailiff. Stepping forward, I recounted the morning I discovered Thomas's attempt to remove my name, the discovery of Mabel's clause, and the community initiatives born from her postscript. I spoke of the families sheltered, the legal clinics hosted, the art therapy sessions that unearthed smiles and grief. I watched as the judge's expression softened, absorbing each detail. Next, Ms. Patel introduced Margaret Blythe. The estate executor took the stand, her posture impeccable, voice measured. She testified to the authenticity of the endorsement and elaborated on Mabel's intent, that the estate serve a higher purpose. When Alexandra Blake was called, her corporate counsel demeanor melted into genuine advocacy. She described her initial doubts, then her transformation upon witnessing our event. She vouched for the sustainability of the program, advising her clients to maintain support. By midday, our case seemed unassailable. Even the judge's rigid countenance hinted at empathy. But then Thomas's counsel requested a recess to present a new piece of evidence, alleged drafts of the deed without my signature, documents not previously filed, soaked in shadows, and missing the notarized endorsement. A hush fell. Ms. Patel objected, untimely, prejudicial, but the judge allowed it. The new evidence was marked as Exhibit J. Ms. Patel requested an opportunity to verify its authenticity, but Judge Reynolds scheduled cross-examination for the following week. I felt the floor shift beneath me. We had cleared one hurdle, only to face a deeper chasm. The unseen draft suggested someone, perhaps Thomas, had prepared alternative deeds, hinting at a long-standing plan to exclude me entirely. Outside the courtroom, the cold wind whipped against my coat as I stepped onto the steps. Reporters clamored for sound bites. "Mrs. Hartley, how do you respond to new allegations?" But I forced a calm smile. Thomas Felon's stepped beside me. His face was drawn, remorse and fear mingling. "I never signed those drafts," he said quietly. "I swear." I wanted to believe him, but doubt had crept in. Then who did? His eyes met mine. "I don't know, but we'll find out." That evening, at home, I pored over every document again. Mabel's journals, my grandmother's letters, estate archives, anything that could shed light on the mysterious drafts. Hours passed, and I found a cryptic note in Mabel's handwriting. "Beware the shadows cast by those closest to you. Protect the light of legacy." My breath caught. A warning from beyond the grave. The final battle was not just in court. It was a confrontation with the hidden forces that threatened to extinguish the light I'd fought so hard to kindle. As midnight approached, a single thought propelled me forward. The real adversary lay closer than I dared imagine, and morning would bring a revelation that could change everything. Before dawn, I found myself standing in the silent study, the cryptic note from Mabel's journal clutched in my hand. The house was still slumbering, shadows clinging to corners like silent watchers. I traced the delicate script. "Beware the shadows cast by those closest to you. Protect the light of legacy." Quote. The words echoed in my mind, suggesting betrayal not only by Thomas but perhaps by someone even closer, someone with access to these private archives. I paced the room, mind racing through every interaction: Margaret's unwavering support, Alexandra's unexpected loyalty, even my own lawyer's calm assurances. Who among them could have had motive and means to draft alternative deeds? The answer hit me like a bolt: the estate housekeeper, Clara. She had served Mabel for decades, knew every nook and cranny of the estate, and every document's secret hiding place. If anyone could forge drafts without detection, it was her. I slipped on my coat and whispered to the darkness, "I have to know." Thomas joined me in the hallway, detention in his eyes. "I'm coming." Together, we retraced our steps to the cedar chest archive room at the manor. Clara's quarters were adjacent, the door always ajar. Inside, closet shelves bulged with linens and housekeeping logs, but I noticed a ledger tucked beneath the bed. Entries in Mabel's elegant hand crossed out and replaced in another's hurried scrawl. I exchanged a look with Thomas. "She's altered the records to cover her tracks." He nodded, jaw clenched. "We need proof." We scanned the room for clues and found a hidden compartment beneath Clara's dresser, an envelope containing the draft deeds, marked with a date 3 months before Mabel's death. My heart pounded as I opened the envelope. The drafts bore my husband's name, the entire property assigned solely to him. Thomas's face went pale. "She set me up." I cradled the papers, betrayal slicing through me. Clara had orchestrated a scheme to pit us against each other and nearly erased my place in our home. Suddenly, footsteps approached. Clara's soft voice called, "Miss Elowen? Mr. Hartley?" I tucked the drafts into my coat and stood tall. "Clara, we need to talk." She emerged, expression composed. "Of course, dear." I held her gaze, voice steady. "About these." I produced the envelope. Her eyes flicked to the papers, then back to me. Fear flashed, but she masked it quickly. "Those are old drafts, notes from Mrs. Hartley's early estate planning." "I know the handwriting's not Mabel's," I said, voice cool. "Why did you draft these and hide them?" Clara's shoulders slumped. "I was trying to protect the family name. After Mabel died, I feared lawsuits and the estate being sold. I panicked." Her voice trembled. "I thought if the property was solely in Thomas's name, it would be safe." My stomach twisted. "You betrayed my grandmother's wishes and my own rights in the name of protection?" She bowed her head. "I was wrong. So wrong." Thomas stepped forward, voice soft but firm. "You put our home in jeopardy." Clara nodded, tears glistening. I'm sorry. I studied her, weighing compassion against justice. Mabel's words rang in my mind, protect the light of legacy. This betrayal could have extinguished that light, but it also revealed the shadows we needed to confront. I took a deep breath. Clara, your loyalty to this family is admirable, but your actions nearly cost me everything. I need you to come forward with this evidence in court. We'll need your testimony. Her tears fell freely now. I will. Outside, dawn's first light broke across the sky. I realized that exposing the darkness was necessary to safeguard the light. Later that day, in preparation for the upcoming cross-examination, Ms. Patel and I reviewed Clara's testimony and the forged drafts. We organized the evidence meticulously, knowing the revelations would sway the judge. That night, I stood by the bay window, looking at our home bathed in moonlight. The battle had shifted inward, revealing hidden betrayals and demanding new alliances. My phone buzzed, a reminder of the conference keynote draft due. The convergence of legal war and public advocacy loomed. My heart steadied with resolve. I would bring the truth to light, both in court and on stage. As I turned away, Mabel's cryptic warning lingered. Protect the light of legacy. I whispered it into the silence, ready to face whatever shadows remained. The weekend before the conference keynote and the court reconvening, I immersed myself in preparation, drafting testimony, refining speeches, and tending to the house's community schedule. The manor felt alive with purpose, each room echoing Mabel's influence and Clara's redemption. On Monday morning, I arrived at the courthouse with a firm resolve. Thomas and I took separate seats, our alliance tested but unbroken. The judge entered, acknowledging the new evidence. Clara's testimony was next. I watched as Clara took the stand, her hands steady despite remorse clouding her eyes. Under oath, she detailed her actions, how fear led her to forge drafts, how she uncovered Thomas's filing against me, and how regret compelled her to come forward. Her words carried weight, painting a portrait of loyalty gone awry. When she finished, Judge Reynolds leaned forward. Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. That will suffice. Thomas's counsel fumbled, unable to rebut the factual evidence. The courtroom buzz shifted as our case regained dominance. Later, I delivered a brief but poignant closing statement, linking the legal validation of the deed to the moral imperative of Mabel's postscript. I watched the judge's expression soften as I spoke of community, legacy, and justice intertwined. Outside, reporters gathered my comments, but I turned them away, focusing on the real work ahead, the upcoming conference. That evening, back at home, I finalized my keynote speech. The study lamp cast a warm glow as I rehearsed, weaving personal narrative with policy proposals. On October 15th, under the bright lights of the State Women's Advocacy Conference Hall, I stood before hundreds of advocates. I shared my story, betrayal, resilience, and the transformative power of a home that opens its doors. Applause rippled through the audience as I unveiled a toolkit for community-based sanctuaries. Social media lit up with praise and offers of partnership from across the nation. Returning home that night, Thomas greeted me with quiet pride. You inspired them. I smiled, exhaustion tempered by exhilaration. We did. 1 month later, I reviewed the updated community program metrics, attendance soaring, partnerships forming, and sustainable funding secured. Words from viewers and attendees filled my inbox, each message a testament to Mabel's enduring legacy. Yet, as I sat by the bay window, a final thought lingered. Legacy is not static. It must be defended, nurtured, and lived every day. With renewed determination, I closed my journal and whispered into the night. This is only the beginning. The crisp autumn air carried promise as October gave way to November. Our home, for the first time in living memory, thrummed with a calendar of purpose. In the Grand Hall, banners detailed upcoming events, youth leadership workshops, mental health roundtables, and a winter coat drive. Each banner bore Mabel's emblem, a silver oak leaf, symbolizing endurance and renewal. On a Tuesday morning, as first light filtered through the foyer's stained glass, I received an unexpected message. A local ordinance review board meeting was scheduled for next week to discuss zoning implications of our community programs. The notice detailed concerns. increased traffic, noise complaints from neighbors, and potential violations of residential use laws. I sensed this was not coincidence but orchestrated pushback, perhaps from investors wary of public spectacle or neighbors resistant to change. I shared the news with Thomas over breakfast in the sunlit kitchen, his brow furrowed. "We've built momentum. We can't afford to lose it to red tape." I nodded, determination igniting. "We'll present our impact report, data on community benefit, endorsements from officials, testimonials from families we've helped." He offered a supportive nod. "Let's prepare." Over the next few days, I spearheaded the creation of a comprehensive impact dossier, metrics on volunteer hours logged, stories of personal transformation, letters from local police and social services praising the Safe Haven program. Volunteers rallied to gather petition signatures, neighbors who had embraced our mission. On the day of the hearing, the council chamber buzzed with tension. Neighbors sat on one side, whispering complaints. Supporters filled the other, brandishing signs. "Home equals hope. Asterisk and asterisk. Protect our sanctuary." Investors' representatives watched from the gallery, their expression inscrutable. When it was my turn, I rose, notes in hand. My voice, though measured, carried the weight of every life changed within these walls. I described the avalanche of positive outcomes: reduced emergency shelter occupancy, strengthened social impacts, enriched community cohesion. Testimonies from survivors and volunteers followed, each story illustrating the tangible difference of a home turned refuge. As I spoke, I watched the counselors' expressions soften, their skepticism waning. Then, a neighbor took the stand to refute noise complaints, admitting she'd been one of the skeptics until she saw the children's laughter echoing through the windows. Others nodded in agreement. A police lieutenant testified to decreased domestic disturbance calls and a strengthened neighborhood watch. Finally, the council deliberated. Minutes stretched into hours. When the vote was called, I gripped the podium. One by one, councilors affirmed our right to operate under a conditional use permit, stipulating guidelines on noise and traffic management, but endorsing our presence. The chamber erupted in applause. Supporters cheered. Neighbors exchanged handshakes. I inhaled deeply, relief and triumph mingling. Later, outside in the crisp dusk, I embraced Thomas. "We did it." He smiled, eyes shining. "Your vision won." I looked back at the manor's silhouette, proud yet aware of the fragility of progress. Each victory invited new challenges, new tests of our commitment. That night, I posted a short video on our channel. "We secured our permit, thanks to you." Comments flooded in. "Standing with you. Incredible. Ready to volunteer." I drifted to sleep, visions of future events dancing in my mind, holiday charity gala, spring mentorship programs. Yet in the quiet, I felt Mabel's presence, a reminder that legacy demanded vigilance and heart. As the moon cast silver across the estate grounds, I whispered, "Onward, Grandma." The winter winds swept through the estate, dusting the hedges with frost as holiday preparations began. Inside, the grand hall shimmered with fairy lights and evergreen garlands, each decoration chosen to reflect warmth and welcome. Volunteers arranged tables laden with food donations, and the local choir rehearsed carols in the adjacent drawing room. I moved through the halls, heart full. Between the courtroom battles and public advocacy, turning the manor into a holiday sanctuary felt both elegant and essential. Memories of childhood winters with Mabel danced through my mind. Her laughter as we decorated gingerbread houses, the softness of her hands guiding mine. "Thomas found me by the mantle. The shelter family you took in last month. They're here today with their extended kin. They've brought gifts." I smiled, tears prickling. "Lead the way." In the living room, children squealed with delight as they unwrapped clothing and toys. Parents watched, relief and joy mingling. I knelt and handed a wool blanket to a grandmother, whose eyes shimmered with gratitude. As the carols floated through the air, the front door chimed. I looked up to see Alexandra Blake stepping inside, arms full of supplies. "Happy holidays," she said softly. I embraced her. "Thank you for your support." She stepped back, her expression serious. There's news. The investors want to review the financials from this event. They're satisfied with the social impact, but want assurances on sustainability. I nodded. We've prepared those reports. Let's review them. She handed me a letter. I scanned its contents. An invitation to present at the annual Philanthropy Summit in London, unconditional if our metrics meet their targets. My breath caught. A global platform. Thomas appeared with his tablet. Our numbers exceed projections. I met Alexandra's gaze. We're ready. She smiled, relief shining. Then, they're on board. A final carol rang out, and I closed my eyes, absorbing the scene, the manor alive with hope, the community intertwined. But in the back of my mind, I heard Mabel's words, protect the light of legacy, and I knew the brightest challenges still lay ahead. Spring arrived with a promise of renewal as blossoms unfurled across the estate grounds, painting the lawns in pastel hues. Inside, the manor awoke from its winter hush, stretching into a season of growth and possibility. I walked the terrace, inhaling the scent of lilacs, my heart brimming with plans for the mentorship program launching today. Thomas joined me, handing me a stack of name tags. Ready for the first cohort? He asked, pride in his voice. I smiled, pressing a tag at his chest. Lead mentor as always. By mid-morning, the study was buzzing with activity. Young women, all aged 18 to 25, brimming with ambition yet tethered by uncertainty. The program Hartley House Mentorship Initiative paired each participant with industry professionals, offering workshops in finance, law, art therapy, and more. I took my place at the front of the room, glance sweeping the eager faces. My voice rang clear. Welcome. Here, you will find tools, guidance, and a community that believes in your potential. The day unfolded in vibrant sessions. Legal literacy taught by Ms. Patel via video link, art therapy led by the estate's resident therapist, networking tips from Alexandra Blake over lunch. Thomas moderated a finance Q&A, sharing his expertise with transparency born of past mistakes. As afternoon sun filtered through the French doors, I led a reflective session on resilience, drawing from my own journey. I recounted the betrayal I faced, the discovery of my grandmother's legacy, and the power of turning adversity into action. In the hush of their attention, I saw recognition and resolve. This was why I fought so fiercely, to ignite the spark of possibility in others. Later, as mentors and mentees mingled over tea in the garden, I noticed a woman standing alone near the fountain. She held a small notebook, eyes searching. I approached her. I'm Eloan. She smiled shyly. I know, Lydia Morrison. I applied for the program hoping to rebuild after my divorce. Your story gave me courage. My chest warmed. Welcome, Lydia. She opened her notebook, revealing sketches of the manor, notes on our events, and at the back, a newspaper clipping, a headline about Mabel Hartley's philanthropy half a century ago. I wanted to understand her, Lydia said. I traced her work. She inspired me. I felt a kinship, how someone I'd never met could touch us both across generations. Thomas called from across the terrace. Ellie, they're ready for the closing circle. I waved and guided Lydia toward the group. As I stepped away, a cold breeze drifted through the courtyard, carrying an echo of Mabel's voice. Legacy lives through those who remember. I paused, heart quickening. Somewhere in the buzzing event, the next chapter of this legacy was unfolding, written not just by me or Thomas, but by every life touched in these halls. But beneath the promise, I sensed change on the horizon. The success of the mentorship program would draw new attention, both supportive and challenging. Negotiations for international sponsorship loomed, and balancing growth with integrity would test every lesson I'd learned. I squared my shoulders and inhaled the spring air. Let's keep the light burning, I whispered, stepping forward into the circle of young women ready to shape their futures. Late summer's golden light filtered through the treetops as our home prepared for its most ambitious undertaking yet, the first international sponsorship delegation from London's Philanthropy Trust. Representatives from across Europe and the UK were arriving to tour the estate and assess potential partnerships. Our success hinged on balancing our grassroots authenticity with global expectations. I moved through the foyer, checking final details. Volunteers polished the silver oak leaf emblems on welcome placards. Thomas coordinated catering in the grand dining room. Clara, now promoted to community liaison, ensured every guest felt personally attended. At noon, the delegation arrived. Sir Hugo Merriweather, chair of the trust, distinguished, silver-haired with discerning eyes. Lady Ingrid Sorensen, an empathic advocate known for her hands-on approach, and Mr. Paolo Rossi, a financial strategist who measured impact in numbers. I greeted them in the study, heart steady. Tours would follow, but first, introductions. Over tea, I presented our journey, from the courtroom battles to community milestones, weaving our narrative into a tapestry of resilience and purpose. Interest flickered in their expressions. Curiosity, skepticism, then respect. Sir Hugo set down his cup. Your accomplishments are impressive, Mrs. Hartley, but we need assurances. How will you maintain the integrity of Mabel's clause as you expand? I met his gaze. By embedding community governance in our structure, local advisory boards, transparent reporting, and ensuring every program serves our core mission. Lady Sorensen leaned forward. We value impact. How do you measure success? Thomas produced the latest metrics. Number of guests sheltered, mentorship outcomes, fundraiser returns, and personal testimonials. Each data point underscored our story's human dimension. Mr. Rossi tapped a tablet. Your financial forecasts are sound, but what of risk? Political changes, economic downturns. How resilient is your model? I glanced at the walls adorned with Mabel's portrait. Legacy is built on adaptability and community trust. We have a diversified funding base, volunteer networks, and partnerships that cross sectors. A long pause. Then Sir Hugo nodded. We will consider a pilot grant. But there's one more question. He produced an envelope, handwritten in my grandmother's flowing script. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Mabel's final codicil. My heart stuttered. That's impossible. He slid the paper across the table. You asked for no flashbacks, but this feels like one. I opened the envelope carefully. Dearest Ellie, should this legacy ever seek to grow beyond home soil, you must carry with it a piece of Hartley's heart. You will create a sister sanctuary abroad, guided by the same principles, to ensure our light shines beyond these walls. If you accept this challenge, the estate shall remain yours in perpetuity. The room held its breath. Thomas's face mirrored mine, astonishment, awe, and the weight of a new obligation. Sir Hugo's voice broke the silence. Mrs. Hartley, will you accept? My pulse thundered. A sister sanctuary abroad, launching operations overseas, demanded resources, leadership, and unyielding faith in Mabel's vision. To decline was unthinkable. To accept meant another leap into uncertainty. I looked at each delegate, then at Thomas, at Clara seated nearby, and felt the mantle of responsibility settle on my shoulders. Finally, I exhaled. Yes, we accept. Relief and anticipation flickered across faces. Sir Hugo smiled. Then welcome to the Trust's global family. Quote, as they stood and extended hands, thunder rumbled outside, the sky mirroring our collective resolve. But in that triumphant moment, I knew a sister sanctuary overseas would test every lesson I'd learned, from the betrayal of those closest to me to the enduring strength of legacy grounded in purpose. Our journey was about to cross oceans, and the true measure of our light would soon be revealed. The dawn after our agreement with the Philanthropy Trust was crisp, tinged with anticipation. Our first task, identifying a location overseas for our sister sanctuary, Mabel's vision extending beyond the ivy-clad walls of the estate. Thomas and I pored over maps across the grand dining table, tracing coordinates from Glasgow to Copenhagen, each city offering unique needs and opportunities. At midday, Clara presented a dossier on potential partner organizations in Lisbon, a city grappling with housing crises and economic disparity. Lady Sorensen had recommended a women's empowerment collective there. Their grassroots ethos mirrored our own. I leaned back, considering the weight of our mission. The first step is understanding the community itself. We need boots on the ground, someone who knows the local culture, language, and challenges. Thomas nodded. I'll reach out to contacts in our network. You coordinate with the trust. The next morning, I drafted an introductory letter to Casa da Esperança, the Lisbon Collective, outlining our purpose and requesting a site visit. As I sealed the envelope, my phone buzzed. An urgent message from Ms. Patel. Exhibit J's cross-examination was scheduled tomorrow in the appellate court. Our legal journey demanded renewed attention even as we ventured abroad. A flicker of anxiety passed through me. The court battle was far from over. A setback there could jeopardize everything we'd built. But I set that aside for the moment. Our mission in Europe beckoned. Days later, I stood in the humilde courtyard of Casa de Esperanza, sunlight filtering through laundry lines overhead. Women gathered, curious at the foreign visitors. Their leader, Sofia Marques, greeted me warmly, her eyes reflecting resilience born from hardship. In broken Portuguese and warm English, we toured the modest hall where community gatherings took place. Tables were scarred, walls bare, but the spirit was palpable. Sofia explained their challenges: domestic crimes, aging infrastructure, lack of mental health resources. We listened, took notes, and envisioned the sanctuary framework: a safe house for immediate shelter, a legal clinic in partnership with local bar associations, art therapy in open-air courtyards, and mentorship circles led by survivors themselves. That evening, beneath terracotta roofs, Thomas and I dined with Sofia and her team. Over plates of bacalhau and glasses of vinho verde, we formed the contours of our collaboration: shared values, mutual respect, and a co-created charter honoring Mabel's model. Returning home weeks later, our European pilot program in motion, I was greeted by a fresh set of challenges. Community feedback on social media had leveled criticism over cost transparency for overseas funds. The investors sought detailed accounting, scrutiny that felt invasive but necessary for accountability. I convened a virtual meeting with Paolo Rossi, Sir Hugo, and Sofia's team. We presented audited statements, demographic impact graphs, and testimonials from Lisbon beneficiaries. The discussion was rigorous but constructive. By its end, our partners affirmed their continued support and pledged additional seed funding for an expansion into rural Spain. Our triumph was tempered by the realization that global impact invited complexity, navigating cultural nuance, regulatory variances, and financial stewardship on an unprecedented scale. At dusk, as I reviewed the day's reports from my bay window desk, a single email popped up. Urgent, petition filed by a local watchdog group alleging misappropriation of funds in the Portugal program. My chest tightened. Despite our transparency, there were accusations, not malicious, perhaps, but rooted in misunderstanding. Mabel's words echoed: beware the shadows cast by those closest to you. Not all adversaries would be obvious. Sometimes, the greatest threats emerged from the goodwill of oversight. Tomorrow, I would need to defend our international endeavor before a digital tribunal of public opinion, and perhaps legal authorities in Lisbon. The light of legacy had crossed oceans, but the shadows had followed. Urgent matters roared to life before dawn as I awakened to the insistent ping of my phone. Email alerts glowed with alarming subject lines. Asterisk, Lisbon watchdog inquiry. Press demands clarification on funds. Urgent, governance threat. Asterisk. My stomach twisted. Nearly all of our painstaking work to build trust in Europe now faced a sudden storm of suspicion. Thomas, bleary-eyed, emerged from our bedroom. He peered at my screen. What's happened? I exhaled, voice tight. The Lisbon Watchdog Group filed a formal petition alleging misappropriation of program funds. They want an independent audit and public retraction if anything's amiss. He briskly dressed and joined me at my study desk, where the night's heated digital debate scrolled across the monitor. Messages from concerned donors, skeptical headlines, and even Sofia's team urging calm and transparency. We need to respond immediately, I said. Paolo and I must prepare a detailed financial report and schedule a live Q&A with the Lisbon community. Thomas nodded. I'll organize our accounting team. You handle public communication. By mid-morning, I drafted a heartfelt video message, acknowledging the inquiry, asserting our unwavering transparency, and inviting anyone with questions to join a livestream discussion. I hit post and watched as comments piled in, both support and skepticism, but the dialogue had begun. Meanwhile, Clara coordinated with local legal counsel in Lisbon to file our audit request, showing goodwill. The community's immediate reaction was mixed, but momentum shifted as Sophia's team posted supportive testimonials about our integrity and the lives transformed by Casa de Esperanza. That afternoon, I faced the live Q&A from our living room, the camera spotlight on me and Thomas seated beside me. The chat window flooded with questions. Where did the funds go? Asterisk, can you show receipts? Asterisk, are you hiding expenses? I answered each question with calm precision. Line item breakdowns, screenshots of transfers, invoices from Lisbon partners, and real-time access to our accounting dashboard. Thomas intervened to clarify budgeting methodologies and contingency reserves. As we concluded, I invited viewers to submit further documents they wished to review. When we signed off, the initial tide of skepticism had shifted. The transparency built trust, and supporters rallied. Exhausted but relieved, I sank into the bay window seat as dusk settled. My phone buzzed again, an urgent call from Judge Reynolds' clerk. Court date advanced, new evidence to be reviewed immediately. My heart sank. The legal battles at home demanded attention even as we fought in Europe. The walls between our two worlds blurred as the dual fronts of justice and accountability stretched us thinner than ever. Thomas placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. We'll face both. I nodded, blinking back fatigue. But first, we need rest. Tomorrow, we prepare. In the quiet that followed, I reflected on Mabel's legacy. Her vision had scattered seeds across continents, but each bloom demanded vigilance. The light we had kindled was bright, but the next dawn would test whether it could endure both legal scrutiny and global accountability. I closed my eyes and whispered, for Mabel, and for everyone depending on us. The early morning haze clung to the estate like a shroud as I rose. Today was the culmination of every battle, every victory, and every lesson learned over the past months. The dual court hearing, the Lisbon inquiry, the global delegation visits, they had led to this final chapter. I donned a classic navy sheath dress and stood before the mirror, tracing my grandmother's silver oak leaf brooch pinned at my collar. It was her symbol of endurance and renewal. I carried it not just as an heirloom, but as a talisman of purpose. In the foyer, Thomas awaited with quiet pride. His tailored suit was crisp, his presence steady. He offered a reassuring smile. Ready? I nodded, drawing a steadying breath. Let's finish this. Our first stop was the appellate courtroom, where Judge Reynolds would deliver her verdict on Exhibit J, the mysterious draft deeds. We entered the hushed chamber, where rows of seats held family members, investors, and our core team. At the bench, Judge Reynolds arranged her notes. Her expression was resolute, compassionate, and authoritative. She looked down at the rulings she'd just read. Mrs. Hartley, based on the totality of evidence, the authentic deed, the notarized endorsement, Clara Alvarez's testimony, and your demonstrable good faith in fulfilling Mabel's postscript, I rule in your favor. The deed stands as executed and the plaintiff's counterclaims are dismissed. A collective exhale filled the room, tears of relief and joy glistening in my eyes. Thomas squeezed my hand. Judge Reynolds continued, her gaze steady on both of us. Furthermore, I commend your exemplary use of the estate in service of the community, both locally and internationally. This court recognizes the unique social value your programs provide and encourages continued philanthropic oversight and transparency, qualities you have already demonstrated. I bowed my head briefly in gratitude. The gavel fell, echoing triumph. Later, as reporters scrambled for sound bites, I slipped away with Thomas to the bay window. I watched the morning sun climb, illuminating the home we'd reclaimed. It's done, he whispered. I rested my forehead against the cool glass, voice soft. For now. The Lisbon inquiry concluded the same day, with an independent audit clearing our funds and commending our transparency. The watchdog group published a statement praising our swift cooperation and accountability, and global donors renewed their support. By midday, the estate hummed with celebration preparations, a brunch in the garden for volunteers, investors, and beneficiaries alike. Clara orchestrated the floral arrangements. Sophia and her Lisbon team connected via live stream to toast our shared legacy. As I entered the sun-dappled marquee, I raised a glass of sparkling cider. Applause rose as I spoke. To community, to legacy, To every person who refused to be cast aside, this home, this sanctuary, stands because of all of you. Glasses clinked, laughter bubbled, and the oak leaf brooch caught the light, reflecting its silver gleam in every uplifted eye. That evening, Thomas and I strolled the gardens, moonlight guiding our steps. He paused beneath the ancient oak that had stood watch over our battles and our triumphs. "What's next?" he asked gently. I traced the bark with my fingertips, voice soft yet resolute. "We keep building, more programs, deeper impact, newer horizons. We honor Mabel by ensuring this light never dims." He embraced me, warmth rippling through the night. Together. I closed my eyes, savoring the moment, the gentle breeze, the community's hum, the promise of tomorrow. For years, I had feared losing my home and my voice. But through every challenge, betrayal, courtroom dramas, international scrutiny, I discovered that true ownership lies in purpose, in compassion, and in the legacies we choose to live by. I looked up at the stars, whispering a final gratitude to my grandmother. "We did it, Mabel. Your light shines on." 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.